Great. So I'll start off the session, and thank you everyone for joining today's session. And very good morning to all of you all. And I am Rashankar, the product manager for data resolve at Ezoref Technologies. And today our panel speakers include myself from Ezoref Technologies. Then we have Lakshan, Deepanjan, and Nagaraj from Data Resolve. And I'd like to give a brief introduction to the solution. And then I'd like to hand over to Lakshan to give an in-depth explanation on the solution. So when you take Data Resolve is a comprehensive and affordable workforce productivity solution. And now more than ever, with the pandemic situation, everyone is working from home. So most of the employees are working from home, and companies are looking for ways to see how productive the employees are. So Data Resolve helps in that aspect. So in Data Resolve, we have two solutions at Data Resolve. The first one is called InDefend, where you have advanced workforce productivity features plus optional DLP features. The second solution is called Decide, where it has predominantly workforce productivity features. Data Resolve is a comprehensive solution where you get a granular visibility of how productive your company's employees are. You get to see the third-party applications the employees are using, the websites they visit, the emails they send, the attachments they try to send, and all aspects to the tasks and activities of an employee. So this is a great solution for a company to keep the employees productive and efficient. So this is Data Resolve has offline recording as well. So it is a great solution. And I would like to hand it over to Lakshan to give an in-depth session on Data Resolve. So also please feel free to ask questions, raise your hand and ask questions, and as we would be glad to clear out all and any inquiries you may have. So thank you, and Lakshan, over to you.
Thanks, Rashankar. I'm audible to everyone, right, Rashankar?
Yes, you're audible, Lakshan.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Rashankar, for the introduction. So we are Data Resolve. We're a company based out of India, and we have our regional office in Dubai, and I operate out of the regional office in here. We have two major platforms. One is InDefend, the other one is Decide. So InDefend is a cross-functional platform wherein it has it has the capabilities to be driven by user and entity behavior analytics based process efficiency. It also cross functions as an insider threat management tool, and it adds the value of being an employee productivity monitoring solution, and it also has the component of a DLP. So we have clients in somewhere over 35 different countries. We have clients like in government, military, and even large corporations like Tata, Panasonic, who uses us in multiple geographies. So some people use our platforms for one of those features. Some people use us for multiple of those features. So we are very agile in what we do, and we would like to keep it open so that we could remain flexible. So I'm going to cover the first part, which is in how organizations can achieve process and human resource efficiency from using our platforms. And then Naga will cover insider threat management, and then Deepanjan will come back to productivity of the module. So inefficiency is, and something I have to start off with, like, there are some stigmas and, like, connotations attached to, like, employee monitoring, but it's not just about micromanaging employees. It's not just about, like, policing or, like, keep an eye on them. So I'm not saying those parts are not important, but it's important to understand that what we do is try to make the processes much more efficient. What we try to do is to give more visibility and insights into how the processes are running in the organization, and how the time is spent, distributed across different activity channels in getting a task done, and who, like, benchmarking it to peers to figure out who does it better than the other. So at the end of the day, organizations using our platforms, they're able to kind of gauge how, out of the peers, who has the best process, like, who does it better, the best practices, and then standardize those practices, so that they would remain much more, everyone can see my screen, right?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yeah. So we start off with the entity level behavior analytics. So this is the part wherein which organizations could get the full visibility of how the time is being spent across different activity channels. So you could have this view at an agent level, at a department level, or at an organization level, and you could have this view across browser activity, application activity, SMTP activity, Gmail activity, file upload activity, chat activity, device activity. So we would just briefly try to cover them one by one. So the first part is the browser activity. So as you can see, at an organization level, you would be able to see on the left-hand side of the chart is the allowed browser activity. On the right-hand side of the chart, you will see blocked browser activities. So as you can see, at a category level, we would be able to know where the browser activity time is being spent in the organization. And if someone were to, drill down on this and investigate, they would be able to get the full incident of which computer was used, which user has accessed it, and which URL, and everything. So to start off, so what we do is we gather activity every second, every activity that is performed, we gather it. So everything what you see on the dashboard is a filtered and churned in meaningful interpretation given to that activity captured. So all of these reports you can download at a core activity level, and you could make your own charts as well. I mean, if you are looking for it at an efficiency level, this is how most organizations are able to do that. So we do the same with application activities as well. So you would be able to get a full idea of what are the applications that are used in the organization and how much those applications are used. So you would be able to again figure out, what kind of application usage goes into routine tasks of the company. And then in the SMTP channel, we do something unique. We would not only be able to tell you how much time was spent on your email clients, we would also be able to tell you how many emails were sent at an organization level, and how many of them had, BCC feature attachment. We do have a shadow logging feature as well. So wherein which any email that is coming up here, if you're using that feature, you would be able to see it all the way up to the attachment of the file. We have a API tie-up with Rediff and Gmail. As a result, if any user were to use Gmail, irrespective of the domain, that details could also be picked up again the same way, all the way down to how many emails were sent. And if you want to investigate, you could do that as well. So SEG module is the add-on module that we use. This is more of a component of the DLP part of the product. So wherein if an organization allows users to send emails using their personal devices, where if an agent is not running, they would be able to monitor that email at a gateway level. So this is used by some organizations, so more of a part of a DLP module. But given that once we add another channel where we can capture data, so we capture and filter that data as well. So the same thing we do across file uploads, like you'll be able to see what kind of file upload activities are happening. This could be from a security point of view of whether your data is getting leaked, or in some departments like archival and administration departments, where their job is to kind of scan and upload files and all these things. So this also turns into a productivity matrix. File access monitoring again refers to same, but when the file is accessed by an application instead of being uploaded to the web. So device activity, again, this refers to any USB, CD, DVD activity, like whether there any files are getting copied, if any activity is present, we would capture that as well. So same features with chat activity. So we would be able to capture the sessions based on messaging, based on time spent. So we would be able to capture that as well. And last but not least, we capture the entire search activity. So you would be able to see what kind of searches are trending. This could be again from a security point of view, or this could be from a productivity point of view, wherein which you want to know who's wasting time. So all these reports that you see, either at a user level or at a department level, you can download at a channel level or at a cumulative level. So this is how most organizations, they use some part of the data we give and some part of the data that they have. Like most organizations already have a matrix of what is the total output of an employee, like how many tasks were completed. Then against each of these tasks, there is always a quality parameter attached, like it could be whether tag was breached, whether it whichever parameters, like it could be customer complaints, anything that they use presently to measure the quality of that number of tasks that were completed. So then the third part, activity versus time. Now this is where we give them our data. So they already have how much of output was created, whether that work is of quality or not. What we tell them is that, okay, to produce that output in this quality, they spend time across these different, this is one use case we have. So first of all, they would be able to know out of the 8 hours, into the period they are observing, how much of time were they actually active. And secondly, we would be able to tell them out of the time that they were active, how much of time was spent productively and how much of time was spent unproductively. And then third, we would be able to tell them the time that they were on the screen, on which category of activities that they spend that time on. It would be email activity, like, based on whichever core systems they use, or Microsoft Office applications they use. So we would be able to categorize it. Again, we capture all activities. It's up to organizations on how they want to club it together and make a more of a, 360-degree view of a bird's eye view and churn that data. And then they could compare that to the output which is generated by the employee, quality of work of the employee, and they would be able to benchmark it to a department put together. They would be able to see, in places where they do this practice, we give the first 3 bars of data. They have the next 3 bars. So where they are able to do it, they're able to find correlations, like, between how much of time is spent on what activity correlates to better quality in work or more efficiency in getting the tasks done. So we could do this across different parameters. And I think I am nearing upon my time, so I will quickly run through the last graph. So this is another meaningful interpretation they can do. What they would do is that at every particular system or at a particular category of activities, they would be able to put all the users together, and they would be able to measure which user spends more or less time on each of these particular. It could be either an application usage or it could be a category of things. So where in which they would be able to arrive at the last chart, if you can see, how much again active time, productive time, how much was the output, and against which they have a meaningful interpretation, like to produce this much output in this quality, this is how a particular user is using these particular channels and these particular activities, and where the users are lagging, those who are producing less output or those who are not producing quality work. So the reasons for that they would be able to isolate, and the entire idea is to build trust between employees and their line managers, because you would also be able to benchmark a user's behavior over a period of time. And if he's losing interest, you would be able to see this as and when you generate these charts, that he's spending less time, his behavior patterns has changed, he seemed to be just going through the motions, it's just that work is becoming a little lackluster. So when they lose interest, you would be able to detect that. And also there is a trust factor between a maker and a checker. The checker would always know which one of the makers that he could trust more than the other. And the maker would also be able to, through our platforms, continuously know that the checker would be able to know that the maker is performing at the same consistency, because we would be able to give that tracking for that. Wherein which if the maker's behavior patterns changes, checker would know that, okay, maybe he's having some issues personally or otherwise, this is the time for me to kind of, put more focus into what he's doing. So it could be used in multifarious ways, but we covered it in a nutshell. So maybe we could cover our platforms over a demo in another session. So I will now hand it over to Naga, who will run you through the insider threat management module. Naga, over to you.
Yeah. So thanks, Lakshan, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this session. So now I'll be talking a little about insider threat management and why it's important for all organizations to have a layer of insider threat management implemented. As well as I'm going to talk about how Indefend can help in detection and mitigation of some of these threats. Okay. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So building upon what Lakshan just now presented, if you look at the kinds of data points being analyzed and gathered by the Indefend product, we via this solution we tend to understand all the digital activities which are being done by the end user using their IT system. Could be a desktop, could be a laptop, or a workstation. Now, 1,000 user organization, there would be employees doing day in and day out lots of digital activities, and most of them would be, as per the genuine business needs of the organization. And these organization individuals, these employees or the insiders, they are also, part of the organization, and by virtue of it, they have access to a lot of critical information and assets that the company holds. Okay. Now, across these millions of digital activities being done by thousands of employees on a day-to-day basis, how do we identify which events could be risky or which events could be sensitive for the organization? And when we say sensitive, we take into account two aspects. we look at the data-oriented activities of the individual as well as the behavior-oriented activities of the individual. Okay. What we do in this solution is we add a layer of intelligence on top of the underlying digital activity events that the system receives from its various sensors across the entire organization deployment base. So we call it the dynamic rule set framework. And I'm going to talk about a little as to how this dynamic rule set really works. Yeah. So let's take an example of SMTP activity. As most of us understand that people use tools like Microsoft Outlook to receive or send official emails from their IT systems. Okay. So let me take an example of a scenario where an employee is trying to send a large number of files using their official email ID and using tools like Microsoft Outlook. And I want to catch whether there is an anomalous scenario where a person suddenly tried to transfer more than a given threshold, let's say 20 files in a span of 30 minutes. And as per organization's behavior, we know that this kind of file transfer all of a sudden is not an expected behavior. So let's see how we can use indefend to capture this kind of an anomaly. Okay. So I'll set this up from scratch. So as we understand that any SMTP activity, any email which is sent, it will have few parameters. So we would have the sender, which is the from. We would have the to CC, BCC. We would also have the subject, mail body, and attachment details. Okay. But in this particular scenario, my focus is to understand a large number of files being sent in a short span of time. So I will look at the file activity threshold parameter. Okay. And I will define what conditions I want to apply to this particular parameter. Let's say I want to set a threshold at 20 files. 20 files and above if it is sent by any individual in a short span of time for the organization. Okay. So I define the file activity threshold parameter. And in addition to that, I also define the time parameter. So I define a threshold, let's say 30 minutes or 60 minutes, these many number of files. Then our system should classify it as a sensitive behavior and necessary representatives from the InfoSec team or the risk management team. Now that I have defined this rule set over here, this rule set will also allow me to specify what is the associated risk from the insider threat perspective. Is it a productivity loss? If yes, then I can specify the associated severity. If it's a probable data theft, then also I can specify associated tool impact, right? And I can also choose any other categories of the risks that we have defined here, so that when this rule actually gets triggered, the risk management team or the security management team would get this event classified in the right category and with the necessary artifacts around this data. So let's see how this incident really looks like. Okay. So this is an example of a scenario where the customer has fully configured our solution and is able to visualize what kind of incidents are coming across various digital activity channels and different kind of violation criteria. So we would see sensitive events coming on a day-to-day basis, auto-generated and auto-reported on this platform. And we would also be able to drill down to the individual offender or the culprit or whoever is the malicious insider who's involved in these kind of activities. Okay. So taking the example of the SMTP channel further. So I was mentioning that we would use rule sets to detect the anomalous behavior or risky behavior across SMTP channel, and from this dashboard we can identify which user was involved. Okay. And we can further drill down by clicking on these counts as well. to see the incident details as demonstrated in this screen. So let's click on SMTP anomaly. So if you recall from the previous screen, I had set the threshold as 20, and this is a sample event which says that more than 20 files were sent by this user. And we also get some details on what kind of file types were sent by the sender. Further, we also identify the time window during which this activity occurred, the day in which this activity occurred, and to whom these values were sent. These files were sent. Okay. Now, with this kind of visibility, the organization has a very strong understanding that which endpoint was involved in this kind of risky behavior. And basis that, a lot of other, dig up can be done around the behavior of this user, and the entire story unravels accordingly. Yeah. But this was just an example of what we can do by analyzing the file transfer behavior. Let me take a quick example to identify whether I can, track whether any malicious activity is happening using BCC. So I set a rule which allows me to track the BCC related events. I want to define a scenario where if a user is sending an email by keeping someone in a recipient and that recipient comes under a high risk email domain, then my system should be able to trigger an alert. Okay, so here is what I set as a criteria to match my BCC parameters. Now, I also want to detect whether the email has an attachment. So I'll set this as true. Now, once this rule is activated and assigned to the respective agents, then I would be able to get a very strong indicator that something risky is happening. And we could again get details of those incidents or those risky events by going to the incident summary section and being able to drill down and see the granular incident details. Yeah. So these are just a couple of examples. However, the representation of the events doesn't stop here. We are also able to use these events to generate risk scores for the entire organization. So let's take example of this section, which we call it as the executive dashboard. Okay. So as you can see, we present something which is called as an overall health score, and this is based on 3 underlying component scores, which are the compliance score, the data protection score, and the productivity score, respectively. Okay. This score gets auto-computed and represented on the dashboard based on the underlying events that the indifferent system is able to analyze and gather. Okay. And of course, these scores are designed to represent that the higher the score is, the more healthy the organization unit is. And the lower the score, the more attention the organization needs to give as to why the score is being indicated as so low. So this gives you visibility across your security compliance, for data protection, as well as your overall organization workplace productivity. Also, the rule categorization which I had done here is useful because it gets represented in the executive dashboard in this manner. So let's say I am seeing the incident trend graph for my organization for a given day, and I want to see. So this graph will be able to give this visualization to me. I could be a CXO of my organization and I want this level of visibility of my organization's security risk. So I could reach out to this executive dashboard of Indifferent and see this day by day visualization. So let's say I want to see what is the report coming for the sales department. So I see the breakup of the incident according to the category. And from here, I can do a further drill down to the individual user. So let's take example of this person. So if this particular person has done any sensitive activity, I'll be able to get the exact activity feed of what all unauthorized events the person did. Let's take example of this user. So here we have a user level event visibility and representation, and the description of what all activities the user did, which were classified as a risky behavior, and what was the associated impact. Let's say I detected that this user did a file upload to an unauthorized domain, or used an unsigned digital application, or he was also using Gmail to send emails to an external recipient. So all these events could be understood, and from the organization level, I could drill down to the individual user level to identify which particular user is going to be the threat for my organization. Okay. So this is just a glimpse of the insider threat management framework, how we present, how it can be leveraged by the organization to mitigate, identify the threats, identify the threat sources and the vectors, and take necessary action. These events, which are represented in detail over here, these can also be exported to a third-party system. This could be any third-party reporting engine or an SIEM product, or it could be an organization's SOC team who wants to leverage this intelligence which is generated by Indefend and take meaningful decisions. Okay. And offline reports can also be exported in the CSV form. So I could generate a report and download to share it with any other stakeholder of my organization who doesn't have access to this dashboard by himself. But even those individuals would be able to go through the incident details and take necessary decisions. Coming to this dashboard, we can also export the overall analytics being presented, and this could be exported on a day basis, on a week basis, or a month basis, depending on the time threshold that you want to visualize. And I can also do a navigation to see how my organization is faring over a given time window. Yeah, are my incidents going up or going down? Of course, if the incidents are going down, it's a good sign for the organization. But if it's again going up, so then we could again do a drill down and identify whether any new threat events or threat vectors have got generated. Okay. So this is just a glimpse of the insider threat management framework, how it is, implemented and offered to our various customers, and how they can benefit using these kind of intelligence being offered by the Indefend product. So with that, I conclude this insider threat management related discussion. Lakshan, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Naga. So now Deepanjan will take us through the productivity module in Indefend and also through our other product desk side. So Deepanjan, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Lakshan. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning. A very good morning. Thank you so much, Lakshan, for the insightful start to this session. And Nagarjun, thank you so much for taking us through the threat management system and the incident management system of Indefend. So just to summarize a few things. So as Nagarjun and Lakshan had mentioned that the Indefend system is a combination of both efficiency and security tool that we kind of deploy to the customers, which the customers use for their overall security of the organization. So while we've touched at the security layer of Indefend, what we intend to do now is look at the efficiency layer, at the productivity layer. which is quite very popularly used, very popular amongst our customers. And like many of our customers actually choose our product over other products because of this specific unique functionality of a product, of our product as well. Because normally what you do is like in organizations, and especially in today's work from home scenarios, where 90% of our colleagues are actually working from home, and you'll have a lot of teams working under you, and you'll always be wondering as a manager or a team leader that like how my teams are faring at work, what are they really spending their time on. And because in office it's very easy to kind of have an understanding and have an eyes that okay, people are working, they are having a good huddle together, and they are brainstorming. But you know, like while you are working from home, sometimes people tend to get a little disconnected from the entire teams. And it is a very common phenomenon across multiple companies in different countries as well, which we have found from our customers. So in the wake of this pandemic over the last 2 years, right? So we had a good spike in not just the requirement for security, but the requirement for measuring the productivity and efficiency of an employee while working from home. And this is where the digital surveillance systems actually and the digital measurement systems comes into place, replacing the physical systems which usually used to be at the offices during the normal times. So it's a good, I think, so that's a phase shift in the way in which organizations are measuring different performances, different securities across different departments within their own company. So now, so what we'll do is we have, as Lakshan had mentioned, we have two different products. Both catering to efficiency actually. So for customers who want both security and efficiency at the same time, they can opt for Indefend, which has the combination of both. And for the customers who have, let's say, a different security system or a different DLP system, they can even opt for efficiency and measurement using our other product called SI.ai. So while Indefend can be kind of deployed on an on-premise system or a cloud system, the SI is fully cloud-based version, and it's very simple to install and deploy, and you can kind of set it up within minutes. So first thing is we will go through the productivity section, the productivity functionality of Indefend, and we'll see that how you can actually have an understanding of how your people tend to spend time on a day-to-day basis within the organization. So Indefend's good thing is that it can be remotely and silently deployed through your Active Directory systems, through your managed engine systems, or any other deployment systems to your end users' machines. And once you have the sensor deployed on the endpoint, you can actually start collecting all the data, and the dashboard is capable enough of inspecting all the data and presenting you the relevant analytics. So while Nagarjuna has covered all the sensor aspects, the rule set aspects, we are going to move into the analytics part of the product of the employee efficiency. So what you can see, so broadly, what we define on the topmost level is 4 broad parameters, which are active screen times, idle screen times, productive times, and unproductive times. Active screen times typically tell you that, let's say, if a person is logging in at 9:30 in the morning and he's logging out at 6:30 in the evening, has he really worked for around 8.5 hours, or has he really worked for around 4 hours or 4.5 hours? So that is something it tells you. So it actively monitors all the different physical activities and digital activities within the laptop or within the system. And it will tell you that for 10 minutes out of those 8.5 hours, 10 minutes is what the user has actually spent on the systems, and rest of the time, the screen might have moved into screensavers, or it might have dimmed off, or the user might be away from the screen. So the active idle time tells you 10 minutes I've spent. The idle time tells you that for 34 seconds I've been idle. I have been on the system, but I've been idle. So I was just probably on a phone or something. And out of this active screen time, we can break it down into productive time and unproductive time. So productive time, you have to kind of, you can select different web categories, different applications. If you're spending time on those applications, then it is marked as proactive. For example, for a bank, if you're spending time on the banking CRM, on the banking portal, right, you can mark it as, you can whitelist it, and whatever time your employees are spending time on those portals, going through different pages, different applications related to the banks, are marked out as the productive time. If your employees spending time on Facebook or Twitter or any other different social media, which is counterproductive to their daily work, then that comes up on their unproductive time. So that is how you can not only see this as on a per organization basis, you can see it on a per group basis. You can filter it as per different agent groups, or you can as per different departments if you decide to configure them, or you can see it across specific user or the entire organization as well. Apart from that, we have a login logout report. So it will show you, like, over the last 30 days, how many people have actually logged into the system. So probably on the first of the month, only 30% people have logged in. On the second week of the month, probably only 50% of the people have logged in. On the third week, maybe 95% of the people are logged in. So it will show you those indicators. Then you can see the various productive applications and the various unproductive applications and the search engines. If you quickly click on any of the attendance system, so you can actually see the entire attendance for a specific date, or you can go back and you can check the productivity analysis. So you can actually see it for like what is the total active and idle time, and you can actually drill down to a specific group and see what are the various applications which have been used. You can also uncheck and see for a specific date. So here you can see that there are different applications within the system, and you can actually see the time spent on each application based on whatever the user has done in the past 24 hours. You can also, if you want to drill down specific to a specific application, then you can see the reports for a specific application as well. At any point of time, you can export the reports to CSV, or you can generate the reports for a longer time as well. The similar thing happens on the web analysis part. So on the web, you will have different search engine, different categories of websites. So you can tell that when people are spending time on social media, when people are spending time on cricket and sports, if they're spending time on different other websites, or different shadow IT websites, or if they're spending time on freelancing websites. So there are different types of analysis, depends. So the moment to deploy this, so it's always a surprise what you're yet to find out, that what comes up from the end users located at the various different regions of the country. Apart from that, you also have direct productivity reports as well. You can download an Excel copy. Well, of course, this one looks a little better, and this one is more of a straightforward report. Now coming to productivity analytics, you can even click on a specific user and see a user-wise report as well. You can go for a complete productivity report. So you can see on a per user, you can see the user's login logout time. You can see the application usage of that user, and you can also see the web usage of that user over a specific period of time. So you can mark that between productive and unproductive activities as well. So not just that, you can, for a specific user, you can kind of select a different time, and you can probably fetch the report for that specific time as well. Okay, and you can actually take a download of this report and present it to your management in a different form as and when it's required. So that is how we tackle productivity in different. It is a secondary function to the main security product, and we have seen people use it much more commonly these days in different domains altogether. So now that we've covered in different, we will now switch back to desk side. Okay, so okay. So desk side is a more of a cloud-based system, as I had mentioned. So I'll just select the relevant dates. So the way to desk side is like it's like a productivity platform. So users can actually join the productivity platform, and the companies can actually record the productivity in different times. So so you have different users who can be kind of onboarded onto the platform, and every user works through a different sensor which is installed at the endpoint. So what you are seeing in front, so the broad level analytics here starts with the total work time analysis and the daily average work time analysis. So it typically shows you that in the date from 1st April to 29th, what has been the total number of work hours, what total number of productive hours, and total number of unproductive hours. It also shows the average active work time per user across the entire organization. You can actually go ahead and kind of change the date and see it for a specific date. So it kind of changes. So probably there's more productivity in the 3rd week of April and lesser productivity in the 4th week of April. So all those statistic analysis you would be able to do. So there's a beautiful work time range analysis. If you look at it like from a first start, it just looks like a graph, right? But if you look at it more closely, you can actually figure out the weekends and weekdays. So you can see that here on the weekdays the productivity is high, and then on the weekends it drops. Sometimes on the Sundays it goes down even 0, and then it jumps up to Monday. Sometimes you can see that over a week, which is the most heavy weighted work day of that particular week. So Monday seems the highest, Tuesday lesser, Wednesday lesser, and then Thursday and Friday, and then some people have worked on the weekends too. So you can figure that out, and you can decide that whether you want to do an overtime, pay an overtime to your people or not, because they've been working hard even on the weekends to make things happen. Although that's not really encouraged for a good balance, work-life balance. Then you come down to longest working top 10 users and shortest working top 10 users. You can figure out the people who are slagging behind in terms of work from specific departments. And you can also see the people who are overloaded with work as well. Then you have which are the most common apps which are used in the organization, and which are the most common productive apps and the most common unproductive apps. Now you can see that Flock is kind of, or you can say is kind of mentioned here and here. That is because you can define different rules for different departments. While your LinkedIn could be a productive tool for the human resource team, it might be an unproductive tool for the rest of the team. So you can kind of come back and have different work definitions, and you can click on the work definitions and mark it as productive and unproductive based on different applications as well. So not just applications, you can mark different web categories as well, and you can mark work schedules as well. So you can mark them that what is my daily work schedule, 8:30 to 5:30, and which are the days of the week you work on that. Once you do that, you can go back and you can assign the work definitions to different users. Once you assign the work definitions to the different users, the entire set of analytics that appears over here will change as per the users. So after the analytics, we can drill down to, you can see the work time of a specific user as well very quickly. So I'll go to a different one. Yeah, so here you can see, so this is the daily activity of the user. So you can just check it over here that you can see the various times people have spent time on productive and unproductive software, and when are they locking the screen, when are they shutting down the screen. So all of those is visible at the highest level. You can also kind of come here and let's see if I have data on this. So on the daily activity, you can actually also find the different system shutdown events of the day as well, and the system unlock events of the day as well. Then if you come to top performers, you can actually tell, so there's different algorithms running in the behind, and against your determined work schedule, it tells you which are the top performers of a specific timeline, and what is the typical productivity and efficiency, like how much time the people have spent on the on-screen and how much time they have spent on productive work. You can also figure out the top non-performers as well. So there are people who are not even logging into the system, but they're logging onto the HR system. So you can filter them by different parameters. You can also have a view on the attendance report. So you can see that who on a specific date, who has actually logged in and who has not logged in, who is late by a few minutes, who has done an early late logout, and you can actually see what is has the person made the daily work goal of the day or not. So are they in a deficit or they are in a surplus? You can also export the entire CSV report for your HR system as well. On the application usage, you have a list of applications which are most commonly used. So you can filter this by departments. The same goes for web usage as well. So you can see different categories which are used and different websites which are used. You can also track the web searches, the Google, Yahoo, Bing searches of different users. This gives a very interesting insight into how your people are working. Like in my company, I use this for understanding how my people are working, how are they thinking, how are they attacking problems, and sometimes even will help you understand problems that are deep lying within the organization as well. Apart from this, we have screenshots. So the system is able to take automatic screenshot of every minute, and it will give you the timestamp, and it will show you that the person has been idle, or has he logged the screen, or if the person is on a break. So the site detects that if you're on a break, then it marks out your screen for a break. And you can also see how they are working on different applications as well. Okay, so also, like if you want to see for a specific time of the day, you can kind of shorten the timeline, and you can see from a specific hour to another hour as well. So because it will be generating a lot of reminders. We also have an idling reminder of desk site on the endpoint. So it tells you that if you're on a meeting or something, and if you're forgetting to do any activity, it just reminds you that, oh, you're at the screen. So can you please just do a little activity or move your mouse so that I know that you're at the screen and you're attending a meeting. And immediately it switches back to the active mode. So there are a lot of things automatically baked in on that as well. So yes, so you can easily kind of import users. So that is an ongoing activity, and you can define different groups as per the locations and regions as well. So I think that is how this site works. Both Indifferent and this site are actually taken from the same core, and they have been built in a separate way. So this site is more friendly to work from home kind of places where you're running a separate security tool, and Indifferent is where you need a security and an efficiency. That will be all. Thank you so much. Hope it was good. So Lakshan, over to you.
Thanks, Deepanjan. And I think Naga, I think we're already closing upon the timeline. So maybe if you can quickly run them through the DLP module as well in a kind of a summary form before we go into Q&A.
Sure. I'll just take a few minutes to talk about the DLP related capabilities. Sharing my screen again. Yeah. So in the previous section, I talked about the risky behavior analysis. Okay. However, apart from looking at the behavioral aspect, it is also important that we look at the data related.
We have a question, just for your information.
Yeah, Rashenka, you want to take the question?
Yeah, shall we take the question now?
Yes, please, go on.
So Asanka has asked a question where if MS Teams, if it can be classified a productivity app, and the screen time to, can it be classified as a productivity app, and the screen time? Can you see this question as well?
Yes. Yes.
I think that's
so it is possible. Yeah.
Is it possible? It is possible in both desk site and Indifferent both. So we detect which application is running on the foreground, and based on that, we can tell you that for how much minutes the person has attended a specific meeting. We can do that. So both for MS Teams it works, for Zoom it works, for even for Google Meet it works.
Great, super, thanks, and Deepanjan.
Naga, back to you.
Yeah, so as I was talking about the data related behavior, so I wanted to talk about how we analyze the data related aspects, and how we take meaningful decisions to identify whether there is a probable data breach or a data leakage happening. So here we leverage the content filtering engine of our product. So if I talk about what exactly the content filtering engine is, so we have multiple components of the content filtering engine. So we can classify our content using 3 building blocks. So we could either define keywords or phrases. This could be defined manually, or it could be taken into import via template documents or fingerprints. Secondly, we have patterns or regular expressions, and thirdly, we have file type detection based rules. Okay, so let's quickly take examples of each. So this is how I can define a sample keyword rule. Either I can define this manually, or I can import a document template to generate a fingerprint and utilize this, any subsequent match or detection of this particular content. This example is a case where I'm trying to detect whether someone is sending a information related to source code of any particular programming language, could be C, C++, or Java. So I'm interested in detecting using indefend whether someone is transferring source code related content to some third party. Another example could be patterns or regular expressions, using which I can determine whether certain type of data is going. So this is an example where I have defined a pattern for detection of Dubai passport. So from geography to geography, the passport identification number and its pattern would be different. For India, it's different. For Dubai, it's different. So I could utilize indefend to define those specific patterns. Taking another example from an Indian context, we have Aadhaar card, which is the national identity card. And I could use this pattern to identify whether someone is sending Aadhaar card related information outside the organization. The third example could be detection of content types. And in this scenario, it is not always possible to detect the underlying content of the file, but I can definitely utilize the content type detection to be able to build a data movement filter and apply powerful rules. Now, using the combination of keyword, pattern, and file type tools, I can build what is called as a content filter rule. And once I've defined the content filter rule, I can again define the rule impacts and finalize the rule before applying it to various kind of channels. So from the policy template section, we have the flexibility to apply content filter rules across different channels. So here I have applied a rule called job across all these channels. There could be multiple combination of rules across multiple channels. So there is no limitation to this framework. And once this rule is applied, I would be able to generate incidents and detect incidents in these rules and represent the corresponding events in the incident details section. So in this particular example, I have highlighted which rule got matched. And as we can see that the channel was SMTP channel, which means the official email channel. And I can get the details of the sender, recipient, as well as the sensitive attachments, which led to the triggering of this rule. Okay. Apart from this, the system also has a feature called shadow logging. So if I want to drill down into the content of the incident, like I want to analyze the attachments, I want to analyze the mail body content, we can even go to that extent by redirecting to the activity report section and do the complete forensic analysis. So while indefend has done the auto detection and reporting, the security team can also utilize the indefend console to do the in-depth forensic analysis and present a meaningful case. If there is an actual proven case of data breach, so this events could be this evidence could be utilized to build the case and accordingly confront the user. And we could also utilize this content filtering framework to implement blocking rules. So when the organization has decided that, okay, I'm not going to sit in monitoring mode, I will also start restricting such activities. So these content filter rules can also be paired up with different kind of policies. For example, we could use it to block the sensitive prints. We could use it to block sensitive files being transferred to USBs, sensitive content being transferred via emails or file uploads. Okay. And accordingly, a layer of both monitoring as well as protection. So this gives a complete, data-centric protection to the organization across its various endpoints and digital assets. And if we only want to monitor what is the data which is sensitive and lying at rest across the organization endpoints, we have something called as data at rest or data discovery. So the same content filter rules which I highlighted earlier, they could also be used to set up periodic scans of each endpoint. So let's say I want to set up a data discovery rule, and I have defined a content filter rule and also specified that this rule should keep running periodically on hourly basis. And I've defined what all content types I want to scan. So I could add the file types, and I could also add the content types, and place this rule and assign to all my organization endpoints, and get periodic visibility of what kind of sensitive data is getting generated on ongoing basis, and what are the critical data points which are already present on these systems, so that the organization gets a visibility of the sensitive data posture, which systems are most risky from the presence of data and from the presence of policies, and accordingly proceed to apply meaningful security controls or security restrictions to minimize the risk. So that was it from the perspective of data leakage prevention related components of Indefend. Over to you, Lakshan.
Rashankar, now we can do a Q&A, answer any questions anybody might have.
Yes, please feel free to ask any questions at the moment.
Rashankar, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better now, yes.
Great. Feel free to ask any questions, and we already had one question, and the data resolve team came through with that. If there's anything else, do let us know, and we'll be happy to answer.
And Rashankar, I think we could also share our contact details. We could be available via LinkedIn or email. Partners could reach out to us and share their queries if anything comes up in the future as well.
Definitely, yeah. And
invite them to sign up for the product and experience a taste of how the solution feels like.
Great. I'll also be personally getting in touch with all the attendees today and getting their feedback. So if there is anything else, just let us know, and I'll be getting in touch with the attendees to see their feedback on the solution. Super. So thank you so much for all the attendees for joining in for today's session, and hope you found it interesting. So thank you for Data Resolve team for taking off the valuable time to present today. And yes, we will be in touch. And thank you for joining today's session. Yes, hope you have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rashankar. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.
Wish you a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye.